Hey folks, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Wise Wife Radio Show. You are tuning in to IntellectualRadio.com. I am Lynn Sharif. This is the Wise Wife Radio program where we meet every week and talk about all things that are related to marriage, relationships. And I am so excited that you are here joining us today. And today's show, because I want to jump right in because I think it's going to be so rich. I named this show, Am I in This by Myself? And I named it that because I had several women over the years. I've actually had several women who've asked me, what is it that I can do? Because I feel like I'm just carrying this load by myself. And not to say that that is just for women. There are men out there who feel like they are doing and expending all the effort by themselves. And I am bringing on a guest, super excited to have him. It's a Mr. Delvin Randle. And the reason that I have him on today, because I know Delvin, I know that he is a voice, he is an influence. He actually has a divorce care group. So he is a very outspoken advocate for love and marriage. And I wanted to get a male perspective because I can talk all day, but I'm not a man. And I can't answer all the questions. And so I have him on today. So Delvin, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here today.
Absolutely. And so I know you, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who you are, what your path has been. Just give us a little bit about you.
Okay, how much time we got? Because that's going to be a long story. So let's start at the beginning. Hi, everybody. My name is Delvin. I've been married for the last 3 years to a wonderful, wonderful woman who has made my life even the better. But before that, I am a divorcee. I've been divorced before, and I make no bones about that because in order to help give support to people who have been divorced, they need a model to stand by. And so I've been through that emotional roller coaster of divorce before. So, but who I am, I have a voice in this industry as far as a vocal actor, voice influencer. I'm starting a network of my own now as far as creation with podcast, video, and audio. And so, so I'm just doing a few things that make me happy at this point. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that you own your history. You own your history, and you're an outspoken advocate for love and marriage now, but have you always been there? Have you always been outspoken?
Absolutely not. I was probably the most closed off individual in the history of closed off individuals. I kept things very close to the vest. And I didn't want people in my business or my life. And that came true because, what person would want to be married to someone like that? And so I had some lessons to learn along the way to get me out of that mindset. But I haven't always been as open as I am now. And I'm not all together there either. There's still work. This is still a work in progress for me. But as far as being that person who can be open and available, that took some work. That took a lot of time for me to really break down a lot of isms in my life. So, so I make no bones about it. I was a mess being closed off. I was not good. It wasn't good for anybody. It wasn't good for them or me, most of all me. But once I figured out how to learn how to communicate, not saying I'm totally communicating, but to learn how to communicate, how to talk fair, how to fight fair, how to have discussions, and everyone's opinion does not have to match mine. So once I became that person, then life became a little easier for me.
So I want to definitely jump into the isms. And for those who have just joined us, you are on IntellectualRadio.com. This is the Wise Wife Radio program, and I am Lynn Sharif, and I have Mr. Delvin Randle, who is talking from the perspective of someone who used to be closed off. And I want to speak to those people out there that feel that they are in their marriage by themselves. They feel like they're the only one carrying the load. And Delvin said that he had to conquer several isms. And so, Delvin, what are some of the isms that you had to conquer? And then how did you do that?
Well, none of these isms make, grammatical sense. So just to put that out there first, soloism. I felt as if I was the only one. No one could understand me. I try to match or compare people's plight or issues to what my plight or issues were. And if they weren't close to me, then they would never understand me. So I don't really try to communicate with people who could not understand me. And the bad part about that is I tried to compare my wife to those things. Since she's a woman, I'm a man, she will never understand what a man goes through. So why am I trying to explain what a man goes through? So I took that as an ism for me that I really had to come out of. Protectionism.
So
Protectionism for me was guarding myself and not leaving myself being vulnerable to others. I don't want anyone in my business. I didn't want anyone in my business. So I had to keep all of that close to me. And I fought hard for that. And so when I could no longer protect my surroundings and they became open, then, the first thing I would do would be to shut down. So that was a big thing for me. So soloism, protectionism, those two were the biggest things that I had to fight as far as the isms that were going.
So that protection and not wanting anybody in your business, I have to ask, but does that mean that you were completely not open to counseling?
Correct. Okay. That because I don't know why I fought it as hard as I did. But having other people know what was going on with me, who only saw me in a certain light or in a certain way, it's almost like, I knew you as this person, but when you start to reveal things that kind of take away from the person that I knew, I didn't want that. I wanted to continue the act, or continue to be that actor, to be the person who they thought I was. So unfortunately, I'll go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So that means, did you wear that mask? Because I can understand wearing it with people outside of your marriage, but did you wear the mask inside the marriage as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's crazy because, I wanted them to fall in love with a representative. I wanted them to fall in love with the person who I presented. It wasn't necessarily a person that I was. And so I became what they thought I should have been. And so when they fell in love with the representative, I had to keep that up. That was more work for me. I had to keep that area of my life up. And so they did not know me as being vulnerable, as far as being afraid of things. They didn't know me as far as being highly emotional. Mm-hmm. They always thought that I was the strong, silent type, but they didn't know me that was shut down when issues came about. So, when that started to get peeled away from the facade that I was presenting, that was a shock for everyone involved.
So I've said this before, and it sounds like you're agreeing before you even know what I'm going to say, but I have often said that men are just as emotional, have just as much fear as women, and the way that it may manifest itself to cover it up is either anger, silence. I don't know what else I can add, and if I'm going down the right road, but do you agree?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
I would say as a man, I was taught how to be a man. Never show your emotions. Don't cry in front of people. Or, as a child growing up, and that's how, I was raised. Never show your emotions to people. Don't cry in front of individuals. Take it like a man. Suck it up. Be a man. That whole thing. Get all the women you can. That's the mantra that I was brought up under. And so, although it was not me, because I thought that I was an emotional type, a highly sensitive type, not highly sensitive, but more of a sensitive type. I was in touch with my feelings. And I thought that was the way I needed to be. But I was shut down with that from men who thought that I should not become the emotional thinker or allow myself to feel certain things or feel a certain way. And so, yeah, I masked that well. I kind of hid all of those emotions, and I became what they thought that I should have been.
Understood.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because, that's the way that men are today. If you say that I'm in touch with, if a man says I'm in touch with my feelings, then other men will say, well, he's a little gay, or it may sound like he's a little sensitive, or it may not be a little effeminate or what have you. And that's a stereotype that we have to fight. So I didn't want to fight the stereotypes. And so I kind of acquiesced and became what they thought I should have been. And it was to my own downfall because I took that well past my child stage, my adolescent stage, my teenage days, and the days that I was single. And it just morphed into this person that became who I was when I was married. So obviously, that part of me destroyed the marriage. And so looking past that, becoming who I am now, and this is years later, I don't consider myself to be anything close to the person that I was before. And so I'm a lot more open. I'm a lot more communicative. I'm a lot more in front of my feelings. And you will know how I feel. I can express that and not feel anything about how you feel about it. If that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. And I definitely want to get to what that transformation, what that looked like. But I also want to know if we could turn the clock back, could your wife have said anything to help you through this or to pull anything out of you? Is there anything that she could have done?
Well, there was more. She's done more for me than people would think. When we were married, my first wife, when we were married and I was treating her horribly bad, we were in a church married couples class. And, when you're in church, you got to keep up the facade. You don't want people thinking you're some type of monster or what have you. So, I played that role. But we're sitting in this class and we're sharing this book. Well, she had a book, I had a book. And she's writing a lot in this book. And I'm just there and I'm just listening to the class. I'm just there as a participant. But when things started to go bad and really go bad, the books that she had, I opened one of them up. It was her book. It wasn't mine. It was her book. And all the writing that she was doing in the book was just expressing how horrible of a husband I was to her, how bad I treated her, how insensitive I was, all of the lies, the cheating, all of that, how closed off I was. I wasn't open at all. And she expressed all of it in that book. She didn't say anything in the class, but she wrote it in the book. And that book pretty much changed my prerogative on who I should be as a person. This was well after we were divorced now, that I came across this book. But that changed the trajectory as far as who I thought I should be. So I dedicate this transformation to her because without her revealing this, it's almost like the light came on and I looked at it from another point of view, and I never took that perspective before. And so that was the beginning of the change for me. And so when we finally sat down and we talked about it, she admitted, yeah, this was really going on. This was real time for me. And, I just sat there and I just thanked her. We openly talked about it. And, and to the point now that we are extremely good friends now. She's remarried as well, probably 4 years now as well. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to be with her. We couldn't be married, but we made the greatest parents ever. So we needed to be that team for our son, and our lives are the better because of it. Because if she didn't express it, I would have never known. I probably would have continued over my lifestyle that way. And so I dedicate this entire transformation to her. And so now my wonderful wife now is the recipient of this change, because I never would have been there without my first wife's help.
Well, she certainly showed you yourself, because I gathered that you did not have any sense as to how awful you were. But I also want to speak to those people. I really hope that it won't end in divorce. But one thing that you say that I absolutely believe is that in order to build something new, the old has to be torn down. And that old being torn down very well may be painful. It may be painful because oftentimes you're going up against what a person, the baggage that they've carried through their lives, how they grew up, all of their experiences. And that's one of the reasons I do recommend that people do go to counseling, because there's sometimes some very flawed narratives that you have in your life that you're carrying with.
Absolutely.
And your partner, your spouse is living them, but they're flawed. They're flawed and they need to be torn down. And it is a painful process to have to tear down what's there and rebuild. But the outcome is so very worth it. And what I'm hearing is that outcome has been wonderful, but it was really painful, because I don't believe that after you found out that it was like, oh, okay, cool, I'm different. No.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
We think healing and change is pretty.
No, this is not the flowery rainbow unicorn relationship. This took work, and a lot of it, and none of it had to happen with my ex-wife. That was probably the better part of it, because she laid the foundation to show me, but it was up to me to accept what she saw and change. So I had to come to acceptance with that entire process, and that was not easy. And that was the old me fought tooth and nail, did not want to be a part of any change. I liked my life the way that it was. I did not want to change.
Did you know that you were jacked up? Did you know?
Did I know that I was this bad?
Yeah.
I knew that I was bad, but my bad didn't have what is it called? There's a term the damages that it caused. I wasn't looking at that. Okay. I wasn't looking at the overall. I knew what it was doing for me. I didn't know what it was doing for people that were associated with me. So I didn't really care about that. But then I started to look at from the side of, okay, this is how this is affecting this house. And so that's when I paid attention to it. Not necessarily just to say, okay, well, let me get it better for the house. I needed to get better for me. And that took years of trying to work that out. And I just wanted to show that I was at least trustworthy again. And that took probably a good 3 years worth of work on my end, not to prove it to anybody but myself. But, my ex-wife was the person that needed to see that the most, because we have a child together and we need to make sure that, we're not, that I'm not influencing him in any bad way at all or whatever. But that change was hard. It was difficult. It was times in which I had to get up and, go and apologize to her in the middle of the night for something that may have hit me at that point that I never would have done when I was the old me. And so, after seeing all of that and her seeing the change in me, I was always saying, look, I've changed. And she would always tell me, change isn't change until I see it.
Understood.
That's probably the thing that I took away from it all. It's not change to her, then it's not change. So I just went on with my life and trying to do right and trying to be better, open, communicative, and all those things. And the strangest thing happened that, she decided to go to church with me one day. And, we sat down together and I kind of asked her to scoot her seat up so someone behind her could pass. But that shut her off. That shut her down. Just by me saying that. And so I didn't get it at all. And it had to be revealed to me that, she was put off by this, and I had to just go back and apologize for that. And she's like, I was feeling a certain way. This was her saying this to me. I was feeling a certain way because, you used to tell me to do things, just telling me to do it. And that would shut me down. And I had that moment. And with her, she had that moment with me in church that day. And so I was like, man, well, God, I'm sorry for everything. That really wasn't my intention at all. And so from that point, she said to me, I've seen that you have worked hard at being this different person. And so I see the work that you're doing. I see the change. There's that word, the change that you are making. And at that point, it became change to her.
Understood.
So, that became the beginning of the process for how she saw me differently. And it also began the process of how I saw me differently as well.
So there are a couple of things. So for anyone who has just joined us, we are being joined by Mr. Delvin Randle, who I have on because he at one time was a guy who was not interested in revealing his feelings, believed that it was something he was carrying from childhood, that men don't reveal their feelings. And so I really want to talk to those people, men and women, that are dealing with a spouse that is closed off, where you may feel like you're doing all the work. And Delvin was so kind and so transparent in sharing what his journey was to go from being closed off to now being more open and being a very, I love it, the love and marriage advocate that he is today. I love that. He works with divorced people as well, and helping them through that journey. So in Delvin's case, he had that marriage was not going to last because that the position that he had was not congruent with being happily married. And so I don't want you to necessarily people to have to get divorced. And so he did not feel that there was anything that his wife could have said while they were married. But one thing that did propel him was the written word of his now ex-wife. And so I have been a big proponent of something called interactive journaling. And that is where you write in a journal how you feel, what's going on. It could be around a particular issue, but say you do have someone who is that your spouse is closed off, writing that, because trying to say it, because sometimes you can talk to your blue in the face and body language can shut you down. Your spouse may shut you down. You might be really mad, and that may not be the opportunity to actually share these things. But I recommend journaling and writing this down so that the other person can know and feel your heart without having to deal with the face-to-face interaction. That could be something you could try.
Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. And I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying there. You have to try. We're at the point now in which, and divorce for me was, again, that was 20 years ago. Okay. Today, people get divorced because they don't put the toilet paper on the right way, whether it's facing you or away from you. People will say, "Oh, well, this is irreconcilable differences because of that." We're at that point of life that which divorce is just so common, it just comes up and out of people's mouths, and no one wants to do the work.
Yeah.
So I'm here to let people know that you have to do the work.
You do.
Whether or not that's you by yourself or you as a couple, I would always impress on you to do it as a couple as much as you can. Whether it's seeing someone or taking time to just check in with each other, reading together, what have you. Do something together to make sure that you have that you all can feel the temperature in the relationship together. Because if you're working on it, it's always going to be hot to you, it's going to be cold to them. So you got to work on it together. Say, well, yeah, this is kind of the right temperature for both of us. You have to do that together. So I'm a big advocate of all of that. Do the work that you need to do to save and to create and grow your marriage. Again, it took me one marriage to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I would love to be the advocate for relationships forever. But it would not have worked if I didn't start to become the advocate for my own. So that's why I'm here. I'm doing this now.
Absolutely. And doing the work is so important. And folks, I get it. Sometimes you're tired because, to work on the problems now, I would gather in most cases, these are not things that just popped up last week. It probably popped up or has been an issue that you've just been getting past or just going past and not dealing with it. And I'm telling you, you cannot sweep it under the rug forever. So do the first thing. And Delvin recommended something that I love, and that is just a check-in. Like, okay, how are we doing? That can just be, over dinner. Where are you? Where's your head? How are we doing? Yeah. All of those things are super important. So Delvin, I've had some ladies that have been dropped in my inbox, at least 2, where their husbands have ED or erectile dysfunction, and they will not talk about it. The men will not talk about it. Like, this is this big old elephant in the room, but there's no conversation. This is not coming up. What can a woman do when she is dealing with that type of scenario and her husband isn't talking about it? What would you suggest?
The first thing I would suggest is to make sure that the ED isn't a result of something bigger, as far as their blood pressure, how's their diet, what's their weight, do they exercise, are they sedentary? I would make them as active in other areas of outside of sex as you can. Let's go for a walk. Why don't we go down the street together and just go to the mailbox? There's a restaurant right up the street. Why don't we just park the car here and walk there and walk back? And whatever you have to do to get the exercise, to get the blood moving, so to speak. The other part is no one, when it comes to ED, men will never talk about it on their own.
Never?
Even in a relationship, they will never talk about it on their own. Because that's the last part that when you become older, it is almost, it's like the last part of your manhood is being taken away from you. You lose your hair, you lose your hearing, you might be able to need glasses, you might have to put readers on, but you should still be able to have sex. But when that goes away, what is there left? And so for a man, they will always feel depleted because they can no longer perform like they used to perform when they were in their 20s. But that's not always the bad thing. As a wife, I would just suggest, let's find out what we can do together. Because it's never, oh, this is what you need to do. It's how you phrase it. Let's find out what we can do together.
Absolutely.
Which is not pointing a finger, not making blame or anything like that. How can I help you? How can I help us? And this is that's something that you have to dance around, because that minefield is full of landmines. You make one wrong step and boom, there's an argument, or boom, he gets shut down, or boom, whatever. He just turned off, or whatever the case may be. So you have to tread lightly in those areas, but you gotta suggest things as far as how can I help us, or how can we make this better? Because it's never a him thing, because the surface of it is, okay, I want to do this, but my body is not, my body is rejecting it. So now it becomes, what can we do? And there are wonderful places where where men can go. And there's a lot of things out there as far as Viagra and Cetaphil. I believe that's one of them as well. Generic versions of the pills as well, Cialis, that will help you, that are no longer under that stigma. And you remember the jokes and the stigma that came with those type of medications.
Yeah,
this is why they don't subscribe to it, because they remember what it used to be.
Modern medicine is just that. There are so many options out there. And so, ladies, if you are married to a man who is dealing with this, I definitely recommend being sweet and adorable first. Be soft and let him know that he is still your man. This is one part of a relationship. What if one of you got sick and you weren't able to have sex? So recognize that this could happen, but this is also part of we're in this thing for life. And so, yes, what can we do? And keep in mind, too, that if he's not able to perform in that way, in the customary way, it doesn't mean that he is not there to cheer you over the finish line. Right?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
that's
so
exactly
you just want a willing cheerleader.
If you're going in the car and you get to California, the goal is getting to California. It's not stopping in Arizona when the goal is California. So you want to get to California. You want to get there as fast as you can, but you want to get there together, getting to California. So I would just suggest, how can we get to California? How can we go? I want to go to California, and I want to go to California with you. So how can we go to California? So there are websites. There are doctors. Websites. For Hims is a wonderful website that men can go to. forhims.com that you can go to and find out how they can help you through these processes. And of course, you have to speak with your doctor to make sure that these things can happen. But the goal is getting to California.
That is
if you're
so
in Maine,
true.
You can't stop in Colorado if the goal is California. Let's go to California together.
That's it. Come, let us travel together. Yes.
So let's get there together. I don't want to get to California before you. I don't want to get there after you. I want to get there together. So how can we get to California, cross the line to California together?
That's it. I'm there. And since we're in this lane, because I've talked about that, because again, this is not just a man problem. Ladies, I talked about the hormonal changes that I went through as a menopausal woman, and she was just gone. But I sought help because I did not want to deal with all of the changes that were going on in my menopausal years. So there is help out there. So please just go the extra mile. If you need to get more specifics, please email me at lynn@lynnSharif.com. And for those of you who are just joining us, you are on IntellectualRadio.com. This is a Wise Wife radio program. I am Lynn Sharif, and I have Mr. Delvin Randle, who talked about his journey from being a closed off man to one who is now a very outspoken advocate for love and marriage and for growth. Come, let us grow together. And so it can happen. But since we are talking about sex, I did a show on the marriage bed being undefiled. And so if I say that, what are the top 3 things? I know the first one is let's get to California together. Let's travel together.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts around that?
That nothing is off limits. Whatever you were thinking, let's do it. If you are in agreement with it, I'm for it. If you like it, I love it. That's the undefiled bed. If you like it, I love it. If you want it, let's do it. If you're for it, I'm for it. But we have to be in agreement.
Yes.
But just because the bed is undefiled does not mean that all bets are off. All systems go, because it may take them a while to get to that undefiled stage. So if you have to do this together, if they're not for it, if they're the red flag, then they're the red flag. If the light is red, the light is red. If it's yellow, okay, you might want to approach it a little differently. But if the light is green, then go. So the bed being undefiled means just that. All systems go. No holds barred. Let's go. What you're thinking, I'm thinking. If it's for us, let's do it. If it gets us to California, then hey, let's go. I don't need a passport. We just get in the car and just go. So that's where undefiled bed means to me. Now, of course, My thinking is a little warped. I may not necessarily be thinking the right thing, but that's how I picture it.
The concern that I have, and particularly in the church, think about it. If you were raised in the church, you were taught that sex is a bad thing. It's and I can imagine that for many who may have grown up in a very strict culture, it may be very difficult to make that transition from the fact that you shouldn't to all bets are out. Do you know? And this is crazy town, but a lot of people feel this way. But I had a woman who told me that she believed that missionary was the only thing, and anything outside of that it's going in God didn't ordain that. I was like, really? I do believe her husband might have been on his second affair by that time, but that's neither here nor there. She believed that. And so and there may be some exceptions. People may believe it for different reasons, but I'm just saying in general, just having that very puritanical, can I call it that? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think the church, I love the church. The church tried to get it right, and they failed miserably. Because I believe that the church has sent off a lot of individuals when it comes to sex. I believe that, yes, sex was made for a husband and wife, but we live in a time now where, there aren't as many married people as there were back in the day. And there are single people who love sex just as much. Are they wrong? Should they feel wrong? Should they not do it and all that?
They're getting it in.
But they've done a horrible job transitioning young people from being young people to being single people to being married people. Because you've been telling them their entire lives maybe I'll give it 18, 20 years, you've been telling them sex is bad, bad, bad. And now they're 22, 24 and they're married, and you tell them to go. How do I go when you've been telling me all my life that sex is bad? And they never have, there's never a comeback for that. And you never prepare them. So you just send them out there into this wide world of sex without any type of training or anything. You've just been shaming them into saying no or embarrassing them into saying no. So the church, to me, has done a horrible job trying to transition people into knowing what sex really is and how to really enjoy it. They just pretty much fell into this, what sex is now. And, you've been telling them no all this time. And so I have a different view on all of that when it comes to the church and sex. They did a horrible job to me when I was young, because again, when we were young, we were just told sex is wrong if you are not married. When you're a teenager, sex is sin, and you don't want to sin because sin is God necessary. God cannot stand sin, so he will not be with you. His hand will be off of you. And this is what we're taught when we were younger kids. And so we take that same thing into being adults.
Very true.
And we become married adults, and we carry that same thing, shame, and we can't enjoy sex. The bed is undefiled when you're married, but you got shame, and so you fight undefiledness and shame all at the same time, and that's how many frustrated married couples you have out there, because they're fighting both sides of it.
Well, we're going to do our part. First, we're going to say, one, the bed is undefiled, mean that whatever the two of you agree on, let it ride. Number two, God is so nice. He created sex. Oh my goodness, he is so nice. Sex can be amazing, and particularly with married couples, because that is the type of transparency that you need to have. And for those of you who are just joining, we talked about when Delvin was not really believing in transparency of his heart, of his feelings, all of those things, and what his transformation has been. But the marital bed is supposed to be the area of ultimate transparency, not just for the lack of clothes, but again, just that spirit to spirit contact. It is a very beautiful thing. So please, folks, get it in. Please get it in. I'm going to be talking about sex again on next week. So tune in as well. But is there anything else that you would add to that?
I would say let's make sure that when it comes to sex is all about communication. Sex is really about openness. It's not about the physical act. It's the act before.
Absolutely.
So you have to set the atmosphere. And how you set the atmosphere for women, men, you got to communicate. You got to talk a little bit. You got to set the atmosphere. You got to present the stage well. It's all about the ambiance. It's all about the strategy behind it all. The chess move, girl. When we get home tonight, girl. All of that.
That's
you got to set the mood, set the tone. So sex is not just about the act. It's about communication. It's about openness. And again, coming from a closed door mentality that I had, I never thought any of those things before. But I'm all for it now because it's about how you communicate. It's the act before that. Sex to me is about the dinner that I make before we go to bed.
Absolutely.
Sex to me is about the time. Sex to me is about taking the trash out, putting her bags in the car for her to go to work. That's sex to me.
That is
because
foreplay.
It's all building to that stage. You got to build yourself to that stage. It's just not the act. I'm a big fan of the act, but foreplay does not begin in the bedroom. It begins when you wake up the day of.
Waking up saying, what is it that I can do to make this person so glad that they are married to me? That has to be your mindset. Absolutely.
Get to California.
We all want to get to California. We want to do it together.
I'm going to use that phrase for as long as I possibly can. How can we get to California?
Absolutely.
Where are you now? I'm in Idaho. I'm in Maine. I'm nowhere near California. I am north.
So we got to go west. Go west, young man. Go west.
Go west, young man.
I love that. I love that. So I want to make sure that if there are any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. And please, if you're watching this on replay, still drop your questions in the chat because I would love to hear from you, to hear if the journey that Delvin took, if any of that resonated with you, if you are married to someone, man or woman, who is closed off, who is not interested in sharing. Delvin shared what his experience had been, that it was about not wanting to be vulnerable, about only wanting his spouse to know the facade, a mask. And that is not conducive to having a long marriage where you all are connected by the heart. It unfortunately ended his marriage, but I am really hoping that today, that if you are there, that this doesn't have to mean the end of your marriage, that there can be some hope. So I gave a couple of tips. Go back and watch the replay if you missed them, but I definitely want to hear from you. And so, Delvin, is there anything that, in closing, that you would say to our audience regarding our subject today?
Well, I will start with ladies. If you are married to a closed off man, I would think that the first thing you need to do is how you create the atmosphere for you to have a communication with him. If you're tired of the one-word answers or the headline answer, how was your day? Great. How did it go at work? Okay. What'd you do today? Not much. If you're tired of those answers, you have to ask the open-ended question. You have to ask, well, how did it make you feel when you went through your day-to-day? And try to bring communication out of him, but you have to be that example, not in you being communicative, because he knows you can be open, but invite him into an atmosphere that he can be open. Help him take down the guard a little bit. When I was going through this here, this made me feel a certain way. Can you relate to some of that? Can you tell me about something that made you feel that way as well? Maybe that might be the thing that he needs to be able to open up and talk a little bit more. But there's a time that my wife and I have now We love to read books. We love to read. And the last book that we just finished reading, called "Marriage Be Hard" with Kevin on stage, and we really loved that book because it really talked about the stereotypes that we carried as singles into marriage and how it really was ineffective when talking about sex, talking about communication, things of that nature. But it also gave us a chance to talk as well. The book was set up that I became Kevin, my wife became Melissa, and each time Kevin had something to say in the book, it said Kevin. I read that part with it. Every time Melissa had something to say, she read that part. And so we took on those characters, but it involved the both of us. It wasn't just me reading to her or she reading to me. We both were reading to each other. And we kind of lived it out. And so they asked questions at the end, and it really helped us identify what was really going on with us. There's a wonderful, wonderful app now that we both use called Evergreen.
Evergreen?
And Evergreen.
Okay.
It's a wonderful, wonderful app, which it will go through certain communication skills that you need to have. You play games in it as well, as far as is this you, or is this your wife, or is this me, or is this your husband, whatever. And it just helps you communicate. And the good thing about it is, I do it at the beginning of my day, and my wife does it at the beginning of her day. And when she's done with her side, it will tell me that she has comments waiting for you to do. And they won't let me read her comments until I make my comments. So it's a wonderful app to use to open up the door to communication. And that's all you need, because we both do the app, and then we get in the car and we drive, and then we're talking about what we just wrote down. So it helps us to be able to communicate, and it gives us an open door into our childhood, into what it is that we've been going through as adults, what we fear, what our fears are, how we can be transparent, vulnerable, open. It's a wonderful, wonderful app to have called Evergreen.
Can't
I would
wait.
suggest to everyone to use that app if they could.
Oh, I'm all over it.
Lastly, I would just say, to the closed off man, I would say at this point in life, we have to check to see, is this really going to be beneficial for us to keep living this way or not? We do that with our health. We do that with the cars we drive. We do that with the homes we have, but we don't do that for the marriages that we have. We don't do that for the relationships that we have. We have to make sure that we have to put as much interest into our relationship as we do our homes, our cars, our jobs, our skill set, all of those things. And there's a benefit in the end, and it's called your wife, because she gains access to the open door of your heart. And if I'm a plant, a biblical scripture here, the Bible says, out of the heart the mouth speaks. We have to be sure that we make sure that we expose our heart. And we can only expose our heart when we open our mouth, because those are the things that are inside of us. Those are the things that are the things that we hold dear. So we need to be able to be open, to be honest when we're closed. And if it is a time where you are closed, I'm not saying that time won't exist, but you got to communicate that. This is a really good time right now. Can I just get some time? It's better than you not saying anything.
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, you'll go further if you do it that way. So you just got to try to release some of the isms, to get away from the stereotypes, the things that you grew up with, and to be able to share these things openly with the only person that is guaranteed to be your support when no one else will, and that's your wife. So those are my suggestions. It may not be great, it may not be grand. Part of my radio segments I may be wrong, but I doubt it. So I'm going to close here by saying I may be wrong, but I doubt it.
You're not wrong.
Have been known to work.
You are not wrong. And I want to piggyback on the couple of things that Delvin said, and that is to Ladies, if you have a man who is trying, please create a warm and safe atmosphere. I talked in some prior shows about not using things and throwing things back in your spouse's face. So create a warm, safe atmosphere. Remember, I'm asking you to be sweet and adorable, take those hard edges off, and invite your man to be more open. And so this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I am so, so grateful for Delvin coming on today. And before I close, folks, I just want to give you a couple things. One is to visit my website, lynnthewisewife.com, if you want someone to navigate this marriage path with you. And as I said, if you would like to send an anonymous comment, please email me at lynn@lynnsharif.com. And I am so grateful that you joined us today. So please share this with your friends. Signing off, IntellectualRadio.com, Lynn Sharif, the Wise Wife Radio Program. Thanks.
Intelligent and straight, my mister. I got to have you, my mister. You're all I need and more, baby. He's thoughtful, insightful.